I want you to picture the ultimate dream scenario. It's basically the story that every single tech vendor has been selling us for the last 3 years straight.
Oh, absolutely. The pitch never really changes.
Right. You walk into your office, you crack open your laptop, and you take all the boring, soul-sucking stuff. The data entry, the email drafts, that horrible scheduling Tetris.
And you just hand it off.
Exactly. You dump it onto your AI assistant. And the promise is that suddenly you are free. You're free to be creative, free to be strategic, free to actually use your brain for once.
It is an incredibly seductive pitch. I mean, it's basically the 4-hour work week all over again. But instead of outsourcing to a virtual assistant in another time zone, you're outsourcing to silicon.
Yeah. But today, we are going to do a serious reality check on that whole narrative. We're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating new article. It's called The Art of Intelligent AI Delegation, published just this year, 2026.
And it's not just an opinion piece, which is what makes it so valuable.
Exactly. We're stacking this up against some incredibly heavy-hitting research. We've got ethnographic studies, massive workforce surveys, economic data, the whole 9 yards.
And honestly, when you look at all that data together, the picture that emerges is, well, it's messy, to put it mildly.
Really messy.
Because it turns out that for a lot of people, this supposed freedom just isn't happening. In fact, for a scary number of professionals out there, AI isn't reducing their workload at all. It is actively increasing it.
That was the headline that just stopped me cold. The idea that we might be completely drowning in what the researchers call rework.
Yeah, the rework trap is real.
So the mission for our deep dive today is pretty specific. We aren't asking if you should use AI. We're way, way past that point. We need to figure out how to use it so you don't fall into this trap of scope creep, identity crises, and just spinning your wheels.
And to do that, we have to really understand a core concept from the source material. It's called intelligent AI delegation.
Which, I admit, sounds a bit like corporate buzzword bingo.
It does, yeah. But it's actually a distinct, highly specific skill set. It's not just, logging into a chatbot and typing a prompt. It's about task selection, rigorous oversight, and crucially, knowing when to say no to the tool.
Before we get to the how-to, though, we really have to look at the car crash. We need to talk about this productivity mirage.
The Workday survey data.
Right, the Workday and Hanover Research Survey from 2026. Because on the surface, if you just glance at the executive summary, the numbers look like a massive victory lap.
They really do. You have 85% of workers claiming they're saving anywhere from 1 to 7 hours a week.
Which is huge.
It is. If you stop reading right there, it sounds like the revolution has officially arrived.
But we never stop reading there, because if 85% of people are saving almost a full workday every single week, why does everyone I know still feel completely burned out?
And that right there is the paradox. When the study digs deeper, they find that 37% of that saved time is immediately lost to rework.
Okay, let's define rework in this specific context. Are we just talking about, fixing some weird formatting?
Oh, it's way more than formatting. It's what they call the hallucination tax.
The hallucination tax, I like that phrase.
Right. Imagine you ask the AI for a market analysis. It gives you this beautiful, confident, perfectly structured document. It looks totally flawless.
It always does.
But then you have to fact-check every single citation. Because it might have just invented a study from 2024 that absolutely does not exist.
Yes. Or you have to edit the tone because it sounds like a weirdly enthusiastic press release.
Exactly. And because of that, the study found that only 14% of respondents are seeing consistent net positive outcomes.
Wait, only 14%?
Just 14%? Those are the only ones where the time saved actually stays saved.
That is incredibly low. That means for the vast majority of you listening right now, you're probably just trading one kind of work for another kind of work.
You're trading drafting for editing.
And I feel this personally. I'll ask for a draft, it comes back instantly, and I get this huge hit of dopamine, like, look at that, I'm done. But then I actually start reading it.
And the illusion shatters.
It does, because it's off, it's confident, but it's subtly wrong. And I end up spending 45 minutes fixing a document I could have just written myself in 30 minutes.
That is exactly what the source defines as the delegation gap. It's effectively productivity theater.
Productivity theater.
Yeah, you feel busy, the pixels are moving on the screen, text is generating, but the actual value, the bottom line, isn't moving at all. You're spinning your wheels, but your speedometer says you're doing 100 miles an hour.
So we're busy but not productive. But surely, if I do manage to save 2 hours, let's say I'm lucky enough to be in that 14%,
That's
I get to go home early, right?
Sure.
Or at least grab a long lunch.
You would think so.
Yeah.
That is the logical assumption.
Yeah.
But human psychology is funny.
Uh,
There's an amazing ethnographic study in our stack by Ranganathan and Ye, also from 2026. They actually followed workers for 8 months to see what happens in the real world when AI frees up their time.
and what did they find?
They found a phenomenon they call work intensification.
Intensification. Okay, that definitely doesn't sound like a 4-hour work week.
Not even close. When people saved time on routine tasks, they didn't step back. They panicked. Or they got overly ambitious.
They expanded their workloads.
Exactly. They took on new reach projects. They started blurring the boundaries of their roles.
Why, though? Is it just fear? Like, if I'm not visibly sweating at my desk, my boss is going to fire me?
That is definitely part of it, but it's also the pacing of the machine itself.
Mm-hmm.
The study specifically notes that workers stop taking natural breaks.
A natural break.
Think about it. When you write a long report yourself, you naturally pause to think. You get up to grab a coffee, you stare out the window for 5 minutes. That's a natural cognitive break.
Right, your brain needs that downtime.
But when you delegate to AI, the output is instant. The assembly line never stops moving. So you never stop moving.
Oh, wow.
You transition from being a creator to being a verifier. You're constantly checking output, hopping from one task to the next without any of that mental downtime.
So the machine is essentially setting the tempo, and we're just scrambling to keep up with it.
Precisely. It generated activity, not necessarily value. And if you want to back this up with hard economic numbers, we have the analysis from Humlum and Vestergaard from 2025.
The Danish labor records study.
Yes. Danish labor records are notoriously detailed, which makes them perfect for this. They found that daily AI users showed absolutely no measurable gains in earnings.
One.
0. And no reduction in working hours at a population level.
That is genuinely damning. All this hype, all this money spent on enterprise subscriptions, and the paycheck isn't getting bigger, and the workday isn't getting any shorter.
Not yet, at least. But the economic impact is really only half the story here. The sources spend a lot of time discussing what this constant verification mode does to our heads.
Right, the psychological impact.
They call it the occupational identity crisis.
This part of the deep dive really resonated with me, because if I spent 10 years becoming a great writer, or a proficient coder, or a really sharp financial analyst, and now a machine does the heavy lifting of that exact job in 4 seconds, who am I?
That's the existential question of our decade. Zhao, Niu, Wang, and Chen released a study focusing specifically on this. They found that when humans are placed in a leader role, meaning you just provide the prompt and the AI executes, the work people don't feel empowered.
They feel disoriented.
Exactly. They feel incredibly disoriented.
Disoriented how, exactly? Like they just don't know what their job description is anymore.
They feel like they are just supervising machines. Because if the so-called drudgery that you delegated was actually the practice field where you honed your professional skills, losing it feels like losing your expertise.
That makes so much sense.
The researchers found workers actively engaging in what they term occupational identity crafting,
Which is a fancy academic talk for.
making up a completely new story to justify your own existence.
Oh.
Workers start scrambling to redefine their value, to prove to themselves, and obviously to their bosses, that they still matter. They start saying things like, I'm not a writer anymore, I'm a prompt engineering strategist.
It feels a little desperate, doesn't it? Like we're trying to build a lifeboat out of corporate buzzwords.
It could definitely be a coping mechanism. But there is another layer to this psychological impact that we really need to flag. And this isn't just about feeling sad or lost. It's about how we actually make decisions.
This is the ethics part.
Right. Zhao, He, and Guan found that extensive AI usage can actually promote moral relativism.
Whoa, that's a very heavy term. How does using a chatbot to write a memo make me less ethical?
It's all about distance. Think about a really tough task, firing someone, or rejecting a small business loan application, or sending a really critical feedback email to a vendor.
Okay.
When you write that yourself, you feel the weight of those words. You wrestle with the phrasing.
Right, you feel the human impact of what you're doing. You might soften the blow a bit or double-check the file to make sure you're actually being fair.
Exactly. But when you delegate the execution of that task to a machine, you emotionally distance yourself from it.
Because you didn't actually say the words.
The study found this makes it psychologically much easier to cut corners, or to accept a result that is good enough, but maybe slightly biased or unnecessarily harsh. You feel less responsible for the output because in your head, the bot wrote it.
It wasn't me, it was the algorithm. That is a terrifyingly slippery slope.
It is. The researchers explicitly call this unintelligent delegation. It erodes your ethical muscle. You stop wrestling with the difficult decisions because the machine just smooths them over for you.
It's like we're outsourcing our conscience right along with our spreadsheets.
Yeah.
And I imagine this must play out in team dynamics too. I saw a note in the sources about the credit problem.
Oh, this is a huge issue for office politics right now.
Yeah.
Seth and Edmondson point out that AI completely blurs the line of authorship. If deliverable is absolutely amazing, who gets the praise? The human who engineered the prompt or the AI model? And conversely, if it's terrible, who gets the blame?
I didn't write that awful slide deck. The AI hallucinated.
Exactly. And this ambiguity just frays trust across a team. I don't know if you actually did the work or if you even bothered to read the work you just sent me, I'm naturally going to trust your judgment less.
It turns the office into a low-trust environment where everyone suspects everyone else of just faking it.
Precisely.
So we've got massive rework, we've got identity crises, we've got psychological distancing, and we've got broken trust. It paints a pretty bleak picture of the modern office. But surely this isn't happening everywhere equally. I feel like my friends in tech are living this nightmare daily, but my friends in healthcare are just trying to get through their shift.
You're absolutely right. The adoption is not uniform at all. The distribution is incredibly uneven. The Gallup data from 2026 shows adoption is extremely high in tech and finance. We're looking at around 76% and 58%.
Yeah.
But in retail and healthcare, it's sitting down in the low 30s.
Which makes total sense. It's a lot easier to delegate a Python script than it is to delegate a nursing decision. The stakes are just totally different. The physical reality is different.
True. But even within those high adoption industries, we really have to look at why people are using it. Like, he and Sun did a fascinating study on this exact question.
What did they find?
They found that a huge driver of AI adoption isn't actually utility. It's monitoring and peer pressure.
Wait, really? So people are using AI mostly because they think their boss is watching them?
That, or because they're terrified of being left behind by their peers. It's FOMO, but weaponized by management.
Wow.
And here is the real kicker from that study. If you use AI because you feel pressured or watched, you get compliance, not quality.
You're just ticking a box.
Exactly. Look, boss, I use the AI tool,
Huh.
but you aren't actually engaging with it to do better work. And that leads directly back to that massive rework problem we started with.
It's completely performative productivity. And speaking of reluctance to use these tools, we really need to talk about the gender gap, because the data from Borwein and colleagues is pretty stark.
It is very stark. Women are significantly more skeptical of AI than men in the workplace.
Now, I've heard this interpreted in some pretty lazy, frankly stereotypical ways, like, oh, women just aren't as tech-savvy, which, looking at the engineering leads I know, sounds like total nonsense.
The research completely confirms it is nonsense. It is absolutely not a lack of skill or understanding. It is a highly rational calculation of risk.
How so?
Women are often heavily represented in roles that are more vulnerable to automation in the first place, or they are simply scrutinized much more harshly for errors than their male counterparts.
So if I use AI and the AI messes up a report, I might get in significantly more trouble than the guy in the next cubicle who did the exact same thing.
That is often the lived experience, yes. It's higher risk aversion because the professional penalties are objectively higher. But here is the crucial key insight from that study, and this is vital for any manager listening right now.
I'm taking notes.
This gender gap disappears. It completely evaporates
Yeah.
if job gains are guaranteed.
Oh, wow. That really changes the whole framing.
Doesn't it?
So it's not, I hate robots or I'm afraid of technology. It's, I hate the idea of this robot being used as an excuse to cut my paycheck.
Exactly. It highlights the absolute necessity of what researchers call a psychological contract. You cannot expect your team to delegate intelligently to a machine if they secretly think the machine was brought in to replace them.
Right.
Trust in the tool depends entirely on credible leadership commitments to job security. It's not about buying them a shiny new tech toy.
Okay, so we fully diagnosed the disease here. The current state of AI adoption is messy, it's psychologically fraught, and it's fueled by insecurity and peer pressure. But we promised the listener we'd move beyond the doom and gloom.
Yes, let's get to the solutions.
The source article talks about intelligent AI delegation. What is the actual practical fix here?
The fundamental shift is moving your mindset from simple outsourcing to directed outsourcing with retained accountability.
Directed outsourcing with retained accountability. That's a mouthful. Let's break that down for everyone listening.
It means you can completely outsource the task, but you cannot, under any circumstances, outsource the judgment.
Okay.
You are the architect. The AI is merely the contractor. You don't just say to a contractor, build me a house, and then drive away for 6 months.
Right. No, you'd end up with a house with no doors.
Exactly. You check the blueprints, you check the foundation, you check the wiring.
Okay, let's get really practical. The source outlines 4 specific strategies for this. Strategy number 1 is task audits. This sounds a little bit like homework. Tell me why I should actually do this.
Because right now, most people are just guessing. They throw every single task at the wall to see what the AI can handle. A task audit is formally mapping your work on 2 axes, AI capability on one side and oversight cost on the other.
Oversight cost. I feel like that's a variable everyone completely ignores.
It's the killer variable. Let's just do the math. If a routine task takes you 10 minutes to do manually,
Okay.
but the AI can generate a draft in 1 minute.
Boom! I've saved 9 minutes. I'm a genius.
Only if it takes you 0 minutes to check its work. But if it takes you 15 minutes to verify that the AI didn't lie about a statistic, didn't hallucinate a fake policy, and didn't use an inappropriate tone, you have actively lost time. You are in the red.
That's the confident and wrong scenario rearing its head again.
Exactly. Intelligent delegation means ruthlessly identifying only the task where the oversight cost is dramatically lower than the execution cost. If you don't actually do that math up front, you are just manufacturing rework for yourself.
I really like that. It turns it into a clear equation rather than just a gut feeling. Okay, strategy number 2, human in the loop.
The operating phrase they use here is delegate, don't abdicate. You need highly structured checkpoints. The source gives a fantastic example from JP Chase.
The bank.
Yes. They don't just let an AI spit out financial analysis and send it directly to a client. That would be insane.
Right, that's just a massive lawsuit waiting to happen.
They require structured review checkpoints. The human analyst has to physically sign off at very specific stages of the document's creation. It's not just a quick final glance at the end. It's an integrated mandatory step in the workflow.
That makes sense for finance.
And similarly, Deloitte uses something called prompt libraries.
Explain that. Is that just like a shared Google Doc of good prompts that the team passes around?
Basically, yes, but formalized. Instead of every single consultant trying to figure out how to prompt the AI from scratch, which creates massive variance in the quality of the output, they build tested, vetted libraries of prompts for specific tasks.
So it takes the guesswork out of it.
It drastically reduces the error rate. It standardizes the quality. They're treating the prompt as a valuable professional asset, not just some magic spell you cast in the dark every time you open a new tab.
It's professionalizing the magic. I like it. Okay, strategy 3. And this one seems to directly address that identity crisis we talked about earlier, identity-aware redesign.
This is arguably the hardest one to implement, but it's the most important for long-term success. You cannot just drop AI onto a team and say, hey, good luck, be more productive. You have to actually help them rewrite their professional story.
And the example from the Cleveland Clinic is really powerful here, right?
Extremely powerful. This was with their doctors. In healthcare, professional identity is everything. I am a healer. I am an expert diagnostician.
Right.
If you bring in an AI diagnostic tool, you severely risk threatening that core identity. So the Cleveland Clinic intentionally involved the doctors in designing the workflow for these tools.
So the doctors aren't just sitting there receiving automated orders from a robot.
Exactly. No, they remain the judges. The AI acts as the researcher. It provides the data and the evidence. But the human doctor renders the final verdict. By explicitly positioning them as the judge rather than the passive recipient of an algorithm's output, you preserve their status. You preserve their sense of self.
They aren't being replaced, they're being upskilled.
Exactly.
And that distinction, judge versus recipient, it seems like that applies to literally everyone, not just doctors. Whether you're a digital marketer or a software coder, you desperately want to be the one holding the gavel.
100%.
Yeah.
If you feel like the judge, you feel in control of your career. If you feel like the recipient, you just feel like a replaceable cog in a machine.
So true. And finally, strategy 4, usefulness first training. This comes from the Gibbard study.
This is honestly my favorite strategy because it directly contradicts how almost every company does their tech training.
Oh, do tell.
Stop teaching people how the transformer model actually works.
Yeah.
Stop explaining tokens and neural networks and parameters.
Welcome to mandatory training. Here is the history of the perceptron from 1958.
Exactly. Most people do not care. It is literally like explaining the thermodynamics of a combustion engine to someone who just wants to drive to the grocery store to buy milk.
So what should we be teaching them instead?
You teach them why it is useful to them personally. Focus entirely on practical utility. Hey, here is how this specific tool saves you 30 minutes on that weekly reporting task you hate doing.
Frame it around their pain points.
Yes. When you focus on the immediate win, trust goes up. When you focus on the mechanics and the math, people's eyes just glaze over and they stop listening.
It seems so incredibly obvious, yet I have personally sat through at least 3 of those History of Generative AI seminars this year alone.
We all have. Stop doing that. Show them the value, not the schematic.
So let's bring this all together for everyone listening. We started with this seductive simplicity, this vendor promise that AI is just a magic button you push to avoid work. But as we've seen through all this research, without a deliberate strategy, the reality is massive rework, it's profound identity confusion, and it's even the potential for moral drift.
But there's a clear way through the mess. It requires moving from passive, fearful adoption to active, intelligent delegation. It requires those rigorous task audits, it requires human-in-the-loop structures, and frankly, it requires managers to have a real, honest conversation with their teams about what our jobs actually are now.
The biggest takeaway for me, and this is a bit of a paradigm shift, is that we have to stop looking at AI as a way to avoid work entirely. We need to start looking at it as a tool that requires a new kind of work, the work of judgment.
That is the perfect synthesis. Think about it. In a world where everyone has the exact same tools, where every single competitor and every single job applicant has access to the exact same language models, the competitive advantage isn't simply having access to AI.
Right, access is commoditized.
The competitive advantage is judgment. It is the highly human ability to look at an AI output and know instantly what is good, what is true, and what is actually valuable to another human being.
Judgment is the last line of defense. So here's my challenge to you, listening right now. Look at your to-do list for tomorrow morning. Pick just one thing you are planning to just give to the AI and ask yourself, am I delegating this intelligently? Have I done the oversight math? Or am I just creating a messy rework project for my future self to clean up on Friday afternoon?
It really is the fundamental difference between being a strategic manager of your technology and just being its janitor.
Oof, don't be the janitor of your own AI. That is definitely going on a sticky note on my monitor.
And I'll leave you with one final thought tying back to that research on the psychological contract.
Let's hear it.
If we successfully delegate our thinking to machines to save time, but we simply fill all of that saved time with more work, more emails, more meetings, more meaningless busyness, are we actually becoming the masters of this technology? Or are we just becoming its most exhausted employees?
That is a tough pill to swallow. The future of work really isn't about what AI can do for us. It's about what we deliberately choose not to give it. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
See you next time.